Yeah, so generative decision making, it's a protocol developed by Percolab, and it's built on the integrated decision making method of holacracy, but it also brings the culture and the culture of practice from art of hosting, if you're familiar with that. And yeah, just to say, I'm going to be hosting this process, but in organizations you can kind of rotate the host and take it in turns. Next slide, please. Generative decision making. There you go. That's all the stages in a nice diagram, where we're going to go through them one by one. So the first, this is one of the main differences between integrative decision making from holacracy and this GDM process, is this first stage of ripeness, which is where the group engages in a time-bound discussion. So we will set a timer and just discuss the issue at hand or the decision, because even though you know the thing you want to decide, what we want to get to is the next slide, which is a version 1 of a proposal. And this will be one person in the group will sense a kind of ripeness of a proposal that they want to suggest that the group goes forward with. And it's really important to remember that this is not the final version of the proposal, so not to feel too much pressure and kind of attachment to finding the perfect proposal. The other thing that's good to remember is we kind of want to prize the proposer, like make them really feel, like really appreciate them, because they're doing a favor for the group. And it can be kind of risky and you know, feel like a responsibility. So we really want to appreciate the person who does make the proposal, but also keeping in mind that there will be opportunities to fine tune the proposal later on. So what we need to do is help the proposer to make this proposal, and we'll write it out on this slide as text, because we want to just be 100% clear. We don't want to be halfway through the process and realize that somebody heard something differently, or that, you know, there's been a kind of change even of just a word or two, and it changes the whole process. So we write that down, and everybody agrees that they've seen it and the proposer is happy with it. Then we go on to the next slide, clarifications. It's really important here that this is an opportunity to voice questions to the proposer, and the proposer has two options. They can either answer with an answer to the question, or they can just say not specified. And what's important here is to realize that often in decisions that we make, you know, we don't have all of the answers to all of the different kind of contextual bits of information. So it's okay for the proposer to just say not specified, I don't know, it's not part of the knowledge or context. And yeah, if somebody speaks without a question, we just need to, I will remind people that this is a clarification stage. So we're only very, very kind of specific and succinct questions. This is not a time for discussion. Then we can move on to reactions. So this is the time, this is really important that everybody in the group, it's mandatory that each person, minus the proposer obviously, expresses to the group a reaction to the proposal, because we want to hear all the diverse voices and perspectives of everyone involved. Even if that's just a short, brief, that's just a brief sentence, it's really important that we hear from everyone. During this time, the proposer listens deeply and takes notes. And after this, the proposer will craft a new version, a version 2 of the proposal, taking into account the reactions that they've heard. They can also choose to ignore some of those reactions. It's really up to the proposer to decide which reactions feel important and necessary to incorporate to a version 2 of the proposal. So also a kind of extra tip, in the reaction round, we often start with whoever seems to have the strongest kind of emotional reaction, or most wants to react. So you start with that person. So then the proposer writes up a version 2 of the proposal in light of all that's been spoken. And the host, that's me, ensures that it's written down again and visible to all, and we read it out loud. It's also good to remind the proposer at this point that they can stay with the same proposal, and they can also ask for help in kind of formulating that second proposal. Moving to number 6, objections. So by this point, yeah, the hope is that there are no objections. Like it's not seen as something that is like necessarily part of the process, and actually yeah, you would hope actually that there aren't any objections. But the point of an objection is that it needs to express a risk or a backward movement for the organization or the initiative. It's important that these are not personal kind of opinions or gripes of like, I don't like this, or this isn't quite how I wanted it to be. It's really important that we focus on whether the person proposing an objection really perceives a risk or a backward movement for the organization. Objections are expressed to the host, to me, not to the proposer, and the host has to decide if the objection is valid or not. And if it is valid, the proposer needs to integrate it into a version 3 of the proposal, and then the objection round is repeated. Yeah, and it's also, this stage is the hardest part of the whole process for the host, because you're really having to kind of distinguish and discern whether objections are personal or whether they actually, I mean, they can be both personal and pose a risk, but whether it's just a kind of opinion or not. And then finally, we have the kind of visual confirmation round, which, because we're on Zoom, will just be a thumbs up, but when we're in person, it can be standing up. And the good thing about this is it's kind of, it serves as a kind of ritual, as a kind of closing, but also what's really good is so if everybody visually confirms that they can live with this decision, actually doing a physical or visible motion helps identify if anybody's sitting there feeling kind of uncomfortable and like something isn't quite, they can't fully sit with the outcome of this decision. And this is important because you don't want people leaving the room or leaving the Zoom and then later on doing what they can to kind of sabotage the decision that's been made. So this is really good to make sure that everybody actually fully can live with this. It also, you know, kind of seals the decision. And if someone does not raise their thumb, then the group needs to return to the part of the process that was not fully addressed. And yeah, it's important to just note that it's not common at this point to have someone who like can't visually confirm, but at the same time, it's really important that if they do feel that it happens. But ideally, by this point, everything has been integrated that needs to be. So that is the process. Are there any questions? Who is feeling most kind of ripe to create a proposal?
Me.
Go for it.
Okay, so I propose that we stop using the London and Bath meetup groups as soon as it's reasonably possible, probably January, and that Bristol gets renamed as Reinventing Work UK Online or something along those lines. And that we do whatever we can to bring across people from Bath or London into this new group, and that we, when the time comes that online events maybe aren't so desired, we deal with that then.
And events are not, it's a very long proposal.
Sorry.
Not so desired, we deal with that then. Okay. Are you happy with this as the proposal, Tim?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not worded very, I didn't word it very well, but that captures the heart of it for me.
Okay. So now we can open up for clarifications. If anyone's got any questions that they'd like to pose Tim to clarify his proposal.
Yeah, I do. Tim, I'm curious about the use of the word online there. So you said gets renamed as Reinventing Work UK Online. Yeah, I thought we were going to have it as, hang on, I'm not supposed to put opinion in. Can I just have that as a question?
Yeah, you just reword it as a question or save it for the reaction round.
Yeah, what's the online bit about?
I guess I just, it's a good point. It just came to my head, so it wasn't really I'm not wedded at all to the name. I guess I wanted to show that it was no longer Reinventing Work Bristol. So I feel like it needs a rename, but yeah, I'm open to any names at all.
Cool. Are there any other questions? Clarification?
Yes. Tim, you already said you were willing to spend some time to move people over, but so who, I guess who's going to take the task of, I'm guessing we need to close Bath and London and then sending out emails. So how do we want to divide that?
So I felt like we didn't have to close Bath and London. Like they could sort of stay open for, well, as long as we want to keep paying for them, really.
Okay.
In many ways, it's really about trying to migrate people across. And if I could get some help from Helen and Brett on the London and the Bath groups in terms of maybe data extraction, obviously I would love you both to email out the people, because I think they have a better relationship with you than with me, but I'm happy to put in as much time as necessary to make sure that every possible person gets contacted.
I do want to make sure that we stay on the proposal, because these feel like they're starting to err into reactions. And the questions for this round are like very specifically about clarifying this proposal.
Just wondering about, we're talking specifically about meetup groups, because there are other chapters that are not part of those 3 meetup groups. Manchester, Cambridge come to mind immediately. I'm not sure where else has got them, but is there a way within the proposal that we might consider those as well?
Yes, so I really think that there's probably not a whole lot of people in those groups, and they'll be very easy to find them either on Slack or email or Meetup and just say, hey, just so you know, we'd love you to attend these events in the future. They're online, so we know you can make it. So I feel like it's quite easy to allow them to leave their Meetup groups active, but to sort of join a new online-based group.
Okay.
Tim, have you actually discussed it with those Meetup, the people who set up those Meetups?
No, I haven't discussed it with Manchester or Cambridge, only Bath, Bristol and London.
Is there one in Scotland as well, isn't there? Is there Edinburgh?
Yeah, I haven't discussed it with Edinburgh.
I can probably chip in here with some useful information. There's in Edinburgh, they haven't had a meetup for some time, and they're that chapter is kind of dormant. The meetup page, it's off the Reinventing Work website because they stopped paying the fees, and the co-organizers there didn't have the time to do it any longer. So they had a few meetups, and that was all. In Manchester, they had one. I went along to that one, and then that was in February. So then COVID happened. They've got 38 members in the group, and as far as I'm aware, Cambridge haven't met. I think that they were interested to. I'm not sure who the people involved in that are, but I don't think that there's a meetup group for Cambridge, and I don't think that a meetup has happened yet.
Okay. I think there's Brighton as well, and I think they might have met once. I would like to include them in this proposal, so actually we're inviting them all.
So this will come out in the reaction round. So we're almost there. If there's any other purely clarification questions, then we'll move on. It feels like a good time to move on to reactions if there's no more questions. Does the proposal feel clear enough to move forward? Great. Okay, so let's go into reactions. And Helen, I'm going to start with you because you'd started something that already felt like it was more of a response than a question. So passing to Helen, and then if you could just pass to the next person after you. And Tim, at this point, you're kind of deeply listening, taking notes and trying to integrate what you're hearing.
So this is purely my reaction to the proposal?
Yeah, just all reactions.
Okay. I am very grateful for Tim for bringing this to our attention and helping us discuss it. It's been sort of going along under the surface for a while about what we're going to do, especially with COVID. So I think now is the time. I think it's a great idea. I feel like we can get more people together and get more energy and get more momentum and more diverse opinions by running online sessions with people from around the UK. And interestingly, people from around the world have been joining as well. I don't want to lose the small community feel that we have, the connections that we're making face to face. But I don't think this proposal stops that. I think that can still continue, and it will probably be on a lesser cadence, but more quality rather than quantity. That's it for now. I think other things will come up for me as other people talk, so I'm going to pass over to Kat.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm very grateful that Tim has organized this for us to discuss. And to be fair, I don't really have too much to add. I think it might be good though if we, within the next few months, already have a think about what we're going to do or how we're going to deal with the fact that people might want to have in-person events again, possibly, I don't know, starting by the second half next year. But other than that, I think the proposal at the moment as it stands, it's good enough. Good and safe enough to try. Thanks, Tim. I'm passing on to Mark, if he could hear me.
Yeah, thank you. I really love the proposal. So I'm going to keep it short and sweet and say no more than that for now, and pass to Brett.
Okay, cool. Yeah, one of my big concerns has been trying to put Reinventing Work on a sustainable footing so that it's not reliant on one or two individuals. So I think spreading the load around different organisers, perhaps more so than has been done in the past, if we pool our organisation and facilitation skills, then that potentially could really help in that way. Just wondering a little bit about coordination, how we coordinate the events diary between us, what that might look like. But apart from that, yeah, I think the idea of creating a more unified Reinventing Work UK, more sort of coherent group, potentially could have quite a lot of benefits. So the only other question mark is around the original ethos of it being city-based and, you know, making work in Bristol better, one place at a time, and creating that sense of place. So just wonder, I mean, again, we don't need to necessarily decide on that now, but, you know, what are the individual chapters going to look like going forward if it's kind of under the umbrella of a Reinventing Work UK meetup community? Just a couple of thoughts there.
Great. Are there any other reactions before we move on to a second version of the proposal and then go on to objections? Helen?
It has led me to start thinking about more of a time zone based group rather than just UK. And I know we were talking about that at the beginning of COVID. I'm not sure what I think about it. Like, I think it's possible, and maybe just doing UK to start with, maybe as a step that we could just try and see, and then we can sort of kind of see what happens. You know, it's open for anyone to come anytime. So yeah, I was just putting it out there. I don't know if anyone else has any specific thoughts on that.
I do. Yeah, there was some, I think in the Americas we had Montreal is the most active one, and there's Seattle and Portland and New York, and someone in Washington, and also Lima. Santiago, did I say Santiago? Anyway, and it just made me think kind of like about a kind of East Coast, West Coast one over there. And I'd already suggested that on Slack. And Helen, hearing you say that about time zones made me think, do we need to, constrain this to just to the UK? Could it be Reinventing Work Europe? Because I guess one thing is a lot of chapters have become dormant over since March and the lockdown. So, for example, Belgrade, we're having kind of regular meetups. Lisbon had just started, and Porto, and a bunch of other places. And I guess that energy's gone, and then there's nothing to say that it'll come back. Or maybe that energy, that rhythm, but it's kind of disappeared. And can we get it back? We were calling it Reinventing Work Europe rather than Reinventing Work UK. Help to engage those people that were once active and now are not so much.
Sounds like, as host, I'm sensing that we're almost starting to expand into like a second decision, because there's the first decision of uniting the UK groups, and then there might be more decisions following about kind of global perspectives, but just kind of, because obviously we could make 5 decisions in this space. So bringing it back to that decision, maybe Tim, do you feel ready to share a version 2 of a proposal? Great. Okay, so I'll just share my screen again and write it up.
Okay, so the new proposal is that we rename Reinventing Work Bristol to something suitable.
Yep.
We relaunch it, hopefully in January, let's say January, by inviting into it all the relevant people that we can, which probably is all UK contacts. We host an early meetup in which we will discuss how might we schedule events, what happens when we return to normal, and how might we engage with Europe.
Is that's the version 2? Brilliant.
Yes.
Has everybody seen that and absorbed it? Brett and Helen?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we have a round for objections. If anybody has any objections about that proposal in its current form moving forward. And the objection, just to remind you, is to express a risk or a backward movement for the organisation / initiative.
I wonder whether we could actually be more concrete in the proposal and actually agree a name. And now it's all a bit hopeful rather than actually definite.
Do you feel like if we don't decide on a name now, that might pose a risk to the initiative?
Yeah, I think it might slow it down.
Interesting.
If we're going to launch an event in January, then we need to have some clarity around what we're launching.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm just wondering, I mean, it sounds valid, like it sounds like two of you have valid concerns about this posing a risk. I'm just trying to think about how to go about deciding a name within this framework. I mean, I guess that we could go back to proposal, if Tim has a proposal for a name, and then reactions.
I don't have a good proposal this second.
Can we not do Reinventing Work UK as was sort of discussed? Or is that not sitting very well with people?
I really like that.
Simple.
Okay, so that would be kind of integrating Helen's objection to the proposal.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
Could we do like Reinventing Work UK and Europe? No.
So, Phoebe?
I am, again, just aware that this is the kind of scope of this decision is around the UK. And then it sounds like there's further discussions and decisions to happen about that kind of wider scope. So I would propose that within the scope of this decision, we take on Helen's objection integrator as we rename Reinventing Work Bristol to Reinventing Work UK, and with this view to launch in January. And then you've got the bit about having more discussions about how you engage in Europe.
Yeah, sounds good.
I have something to say, although it's not an objection, to a part of the version, just a part of version 2. So Reinventing Work UK is a name that I like. Reinventing Work Europe is a discussion that I think would be a good one. The bit that I've got a kind of question mark over is, so we host a meetup early next year, I think it was said, about how we might schedule events. And I guess it's that scheduling of events that kind of makes me kind of do that a little bit. What I really liked about Reinventing Work in the beginning was that we didn't schedule events, and that they kind of self-organized. So I wouldn't object and say that it's not safe to try, but I wouldn't like it if a rigid schedule of events was the aim of the meetup in January.
I'm just going to say that I think what Mark has raised falls within the scope of a discussion around how might we schedule events, because I guess within that discussion you could decide not to. If that fits well with everyone. Tim, did you?
Yeah, I guess I was going to say I'd be happy to sort of reword the proposal to say in an initial meetup, we would work out how best to take this new format forward, taking into account scheduling, time zones, other groups, what happens, essentially how do we improve this movement? So I didn't want to say that I want a rigid schedule of events.
Cool. Yeah.
Right.
And I'd love to encourage the kind of just the scheduling and not committee before scheduling of events. So and being really clear about that invitation.
Great. Cool. Okay, any more objections, worries about this proposal posing a risk or backwards movement? No. Brett, you look like you're about to say something.
No, all good.
All good. Okay, great. Okay, so final stage, we want to show kind of visual confirmation that everybody can live with the decision as it's put in the chat in a kind of fourth version. Yeah, so if you feel happy with this going ahead, you can do a thumbs up, and I guess you could take like a screenshot and share it on the Slack, or a way of kind of ratifying. Nice. Great. We're 6 minutes over time, which isn't too bad.
Thanks so much, Phoebe. And just to be clear, everyone, because Reinventing Work's way of making decisions is via the advice process, this is going to the community now as like a fully fleshed out proposal. So it's not going to happen tomorrow, but it makes me feel confident enough to take it to the community. So
Thanks, Tim.
Great.
Tim, and
thanks, Phoebe.
Yeah.
Thanks, Phoebe.
Thank you,
Yes.
Phoebe and Tim. Awesome.
Thanks all of you for participation. Maybe it would be great just to hear a final check out. How are you leaving? How was the process for you? How are you feeling as you leave?